I was a little bit too young to take care of myself, too old for a babysitter, but she wanted a place for me to go. So she saw this ad, Future Champions Won, and she snuck into the other room. She's like, hi, my name is Beata. I have a son named Adam. He's not a champion. He's not going to be a champion. And I said, yeah, bring him down. They're a very welcoming place, the canoe club. So we went down the very next day, and I had hair down to here. I was a delinquent. She was right. I was getting into trouble. She has no idea how much trouble I was getting into, actually. But I was getting into trouble. So I walked in the door, and the first three people we met were Scott Oldershaw, 84 Olympian. His grandfather was an Olympian. His father was an Olympian. Everybody's an Olympian in this story. He's my current coach. He's been my coach for the last 16 years. His older brother, Dean Oldershaw, was the second guy we met. He was my first coach. My first coach for that first 4 or 5 years was at the canoe club. And Larry Kane, 1984 Olympic champion, many times medal winner at everything, basically. He's pushing 60 right now, and he's still killing 18-year-olds on this SUP board that he races all over North America. He's incredible. And at the time, he was in his prime, basically in his mid-30s. And I think I mentioned my mom's single. And she's like, oh, hello. My name is Beata Bacrossi. This is my son, Adam van Koeverden. You notice we have different last names. I didn't invite my mom tonight so that I could tell that joke. And I wondered for a second, aren't we down here for me? I thought we were. But anyway, I met these three amazing Olympians when I first walked in the door, and I realized my life was about to change. I went down to that canoe club. I was a bit lazy. I was delinquent. I was having trouble with school, and that canoe club turned everything around for me. And it was the most incredible day that I could ever ask for. I didn't realize it at the time that I was going to become a kayaker, that I was actually going to, it was going to involve itself in every aspect of my life. And every day I woke up, for the next 20 years, I was going to dream about getting on the water and dream about going to the Olympics. But that's what happened that day, just because there was an ad in the Oakville Beaver that said, Future Champions Wanted. I should find the guy who wrote it. I have a clipping of it, but... So fast forward 20 years later, and I'm still doing it. I still love kayaking. There's been so many stories between now and then, but I really want to focus on the last couple of weeks, because I just got home from Rio. It was my 4th Olympic Games as an athlete. I went to Athens, Beijing, and London. And thanks. But that was a difficult road, actually. I tried out for the Sydney Olympics as well, the one that Jeff was talking about. And I tried out in the spring. I was 18 years old. I was still in high school. I was a little bit young, but I didn't make the team. And that fall was difficult because I kind of rode through the summer, and I was not rode through the summer. I kayak. I don't row. Sorry. I rode through the summer. I did the other competitions that were on the race card that summer, and I had a good summer. But it didn't really hit me until the fall when the Olympics came around. They were late because they were in Australia that year, and I watched the opening ceremonies, and I was overcome with this sadness, like I was missing out on something that I was planning on going to. And I really felt like I should be there. Actually, I was going to McMaster by then, and I invited everybody to the common room of our floor at Whidden Hall. Anybody went to McMaster here? 2 or 3? Okay. Well-educated room, good stuff. Probably more U of T people. Don't cheer if you went to U of T. I don't care. So I invited everybody to the common room of our floor at Whidden Hall, and it was at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch the opening ceremonies, because I was ready to be inspired. I wanted to, I didn't realize I didn't make the team, but I wanted to go in 2004. So I was like, everybody come, I put up signs, I got some Molson Canadian, a big flag, and I showed up at 2 o'clock, and there was nobody there. So yeah, real sad, right? And so I put the Maple Leaf flag around my shoulders, and I watched the opening ceremonies, and I thought, this is going to be so inspiring, I'm going to be so stoked, I'm going to go to the Olympics in 4 years. But instead, I stood there, and I just kind of cried, and I dried my face with the Canadian flag, and I drank warm Molson Canadian, and I was pathetic. But at that moment, I promised myself something, that nothing was going to stop me from going to the Olympics in 2004. So a couple years later, I wasn't fast enough, still wasn't fast enough to go to the Olympics, so I decided talk to my coach about it. I'm going to go talk to Scott. I said, Scott, I really want to go to the Olympics in 2 years, and we're clearly not on the right path. What are we going to do? And he said, look, I've taught you everything I know how to teach. I've coached you as best I can, and if you don't think you're on the right path, then you have to leave. You have to go somewhere else, just for 6 or 8 weeks or 2 months, 3 months, whatever you got to do. But go and learn from the best. So I went to the flight center at McMaster University. It was like a cheap flight to Australia. I got a flight for like $1,000. I had to fly with the chickens in the back. And I got down to Australia, and I rented a boat from some Swedes, and I stayed on my friend's floor in his garage on a mattress for like $50 a week, and I didn't have any money, but this was what I had to do. I had to go to the source of the best kayakers in the world. My friend at the time was world champion the previous year, and I needed to learn from the best kayakers in the world. So I basically just snuck down there and snuck on the water and rented a boat from these Swedes, and I decided, I heard they were getting on the water at about 7 a.m., so I got on the water at 6:50, and I paddled little circles around the dock until 7 a.m., and these big, two hulking Swedes, Marcus Oscarsson, and Henrik Nilsson, come down. I'm like 5'11", 5'11", 3/4. I lie and say I'm 6 feet. I wear shoes like this. I'm 6 feet. These guys are like 6'6", 6'7", covered in tattoos. I'm not even kidding. They're chewing tobacco as they're walking down with their boats. They look like they've just pillaged a small community. They're Vikings. All right, they're terrifying. And I just flew all the way to Australia, spent all my money to try and learn from these guys, and they don't even know my name. They're just looking at me like, who is this guy, and why is he doing circles around the dock like an idiot? And they got on the water, and I was like, hey, you guys, I'm Adam, I'm Canadian. I'm just waiting for my group. Have you seen any other Canadians around? Marcus goes, spits, because he's got tobacco in his mouth. I'm not even kidding. He goes, I rented you that boat. You probably don't know, but I only rented one to one Canadian, so I'm assuming you're the only Canadian. So yeah, that's true. So the next day, he let me paddle with him. He was really nice. I have a lot of gratitude for that guy. But we were paddling along, and I looked over, and his partner, Henrik, is the big leaf attached to the front of his nose. He's this big, giant guy, and I thought it was funny that this little banana leaf was like, pissing him off, and it was causing a lot of like splashing and stuff like that. And he's bouncing his boat up and down, trying to get the leaf off the front. And I was thinking of a joke. I haven't really even talked to these guys yet. Like, there's been very, very few words. I don't know if you know any like Norwegians or Swedes, but they're cold. They're very cold. And they're hard. You got to like break a thick layer of ice in order. This ice breaking is like fierce. So I'm like, okay, I've got the joke. Matt Sundin, he's Swedish. There's a leaf, maple leaves. I got a joke in my head. Here goes. And I say, hey, Henrik, you got a leaf attached to the front of your boat. And before I could even finish, he goes, yes, it's probably a maple leaf, which has come to spoil my training. Snap, right? Snap. So the point of all this is, the next year I qualified for the Olympics, and I went to Athens, and I won a couple medals. And then I had a couple more, thanks. And then the next year, 4 years later, I went to Beijing, and I got to carry the flag for Canada at the opening ceremonies. And please don't clap. I only have like 3 more minutes. Come on. And I got to carry the flag, and I got all these great things, given to me, basically. I worked hard, but like, if there weren't people like Scott and Dean and Larry and my mom, if there weren't people like Marcus and Henrik willing to like let me train with them, this like unknown Canadian guy. If I didn't have people like Penny, my sports psychologist, to talk me like, out of disaster, how many times in my life, if I had a terrible race and I felt like quitting. If I didn't have my training partners down at the Burloak Canoe Club, if I didn't have my dad to buy me my first boat, I wouldn't have been able to do it.